Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Thursday, December 6, 2018. Today I'm going to recap last night's NBA, NHL, college basketball games, look ahead to tonight's slate in each of the three sports, do my NBA and NHL power rankings, I'll do my best bet, I'll make my pick for tonight's game between the Jaguars and the Titans as well. But I want to start with a big trade that happened yesterday. Paul Goldschmidt was traded from the Arizona Diamondbacks to the St. Louis Cardinals for the young catcher Carson Kelly, righty Luke Weaver, utility infielder Andrew Young, and a 2019 compensatory round pick, or I should say round B pick in the 2019 MLB draft. You rarely see draft picks traded these days in baseball. But hey, the Cardinals get an extreme power hitter that they've been lacking perhaps since Albert Pujols left. They get Goldschmidt in a contract year. You expect he's going to be motivated and want to get paid. Maybe he'll eventually get paid by the Cardinals. This moves Matt Carpenter to third base. And then your middle infield is Jose Martinez and Paul DeJong. And you also have Jed Jerko in there as a utility guy. The thing with Kelly is that he was perceived as the Cardinals' catcher of the future, but he was overtaken by the young catcher Andrew Kinsler, and Yadier Molina proved that he still had some stuff left in the tank, so that prolonged his time. So it made sense for the Cardinals to move on from Kelly and have Kinsler develop some time in the minors until Yadier Molina's contract is up. And I think this is a big win for the Cardinals. This puts them right back in the conversation in the National League in terms of contenders. I think they still have more moves in them. Bullpen arm, maybe even a rotation arm. The Cardinals like to be bold. And like I said, he's going to be a big impact in that lineup. And don't forget they acquired Marcell Ozuna last year, who didn't have as good as a year as he did in 2017, but I expect him to have a better year this upcoming season. And they also have Tyler O'Neill, who was called up and showed some flashes as well. And meanwhile, for Arizona, they get Kelly, and I talked about him. He immediately becomes their catcher of the future. And you also have Luke Weaver, who will be a part of their rotation, assuming they move on from Zach Greinke, and I think that's what's next for the Diamondbacks. And then Andrew Young's just a utility piece, and then the compensatory pick. So that's a good haul for Goldschmidt, considering he had 1 year left on his contract. So you get a potential catcher of the future, a guy that could elevate into a mid-rotation starter in Weaver. Young, I think, is just a throw-in, and then the draft pick could be good depending on who you can land in that spot. We're far away from the baseball draft. That's not until June. So that's that. And the other big news in baseball is that the Red Sox re-signed Nathan Eovaldi, 4 years, $67.5 million. I think that is a massive overpay for a guy that just had a career year and a contract year. He has not pitched more than 200 innings in a full season. It's obviously pending physical. And he pitched well for Boston and seemed like it was a good fit for him. And this reminds me a lot of the 2013 Red Sox and their offseason a little bit, because they brought back those heroes, except I made this argument on this podcast several times. The 2017 Red Sox were a better team, and I mean by far better team, than the 2013 Red Sox. 2013 Red Sox might have been the flukiest championship in sports history. Meanwhile, the 2017 Red Sox had a lot of transcendent players on it, and they'll basically bring back that same core that features Mookie Betts, Sander Bogaerts, Andrew Benintendi, J.D. Martinez, Chris Sale, David Price, Rick Porcello. So the main people of that team comes back, and then they re-sign the two guys they picked up at the deadline in Eovaldi and World Series MVP Steve Pearce. So it's a good for the Red Sox to bring back somebody like that, but I think it'll ultimately be a bad contract when it's all said and done. And I want to get into off seasons for the AL East and the NL Central because those two division teams, those Red Sox and Cardinals, made big moves within the last 12 hours, or plus, I should say, more than 12 hours, maybe 24 hours. This Goldschmidt was traded around 5 o'clock Eastern yesterday. We already went through the Red Sox. Other things that they might do is bring in a reliever. I think that is their biggest area of need because I'm not sold that those guys that help them in the pen during the playoffs are for real, like Ryan Brazier and people like that, Heath Hembry. So if I'm them, you either bring back Joe Kelly and Craig Kimbrell or bring in two above-average guys like David Robertson and Andrew Miller, or David Robertson and Zach Britton, or Zach Britton and Andrew Miller. You need two of like those type of guys, or even one of those three free agents I keep mentioning, like Robertson, Miller, or Britton, one of those three with Joe Kelly. So there's some guys out there. And Kelvin Herrera is another good reliever that's a free agent. He just didn't have a good year last year. Yankees, so they pass up on Nathan Eovaldi. Smart. Patrick Corbin might prove to be smart down the road, but that just would have been a great fit in Yankee Stadium. I think they're looking for a lefty. Dallas Keuchel, I think, isn't that guy. I think Jay Happ would be a better fit because, yeah, it was a small sample size, but he pitched pretty well after coming over in that trade last year. I could see them bringing back Jay Happ and using him as their number 4 starter. Yeah, they might overpay a little bit like the Red Sox did with Eovaldi, although Happ's older. I could see the Yankees bringing Happ back on a 3-year, $39 million deal or something like that. Or maybe they explore the trade avenue again. Maybe they look at one of the Cleveland guys like a Corrasco or a Kluber or a Bauer. Or San Francisco's Madison Bumgarner, who on this podcast several times I predicted would be traded to the Yankees. Because I just think that's the perfect fit. The Yankees want a lefty. Bumgarner's a big game pitcher. I could see him being rejuvenated on a contender a la Justin Verlander in 2017. So I just think Bumgarner would be the best fit. And I know the Yankees are looking for big things. I know they like the Met guys, but Jeff Wilpon wouldn't even trade them Jay Bruce 2 years ago. So I don't think they would trade him Noah Syndergaard or Jacob deGrom. Although I do think the Mets will end up keeping both of those guys, especially in the wake of that Robinson Cano, Edwin Diaz trade. And I think they're thinking big things and they want to compete in the NL East. I already talked about the Mets a little bit yesterday. But yeah, we'll see what the Yankees do regarding their starting pitching. They need 2 relievers too because Robertson and Britton are both free agents. Maybe they bring both of those guys back. Maybe they sign Andrew Miller and Kelvin Herrera. So like the Red Sox, they need to sign 2 of those guys. And then there's the dilemma of Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. Those 2 are going to be linked to the Yankees all week next week. I think Manny Machado is the better fit for the Yankees because they need a short-term shortstop while Didi Gregorius recovers from Tommy John surgery. And then, in theory, they'd move him to third base once Didi comes back, and then put Andujar either DH or first base, depending on what the Yankees end up doing in left field, whether they put Giancarlo Stanton there, or, dare I say, they sign Bryce Harper for left field, which would absolutely blow up social media if Bryce Harper were to go to the Yankees. I have a sneaky suspicion that he may go there. I'm doing my final winter meetings predictions tomorrow, so stay tuned. And they're the Yankees. I just don't see them sitting on their hands and saying, our big move is James Paxton. No way. They're going to do something big next week. I just really don't exactly know what it is. And Aaron Boone was on ESPN New York, and the Yes Network's Michael Kay show yesterday and said that he expects the Yankees to do something big next week. So there's that. The Tampa Bay Rays, interesting team. They were certainly close last year to making the playoffs. I think they should go for it because they really showed a lot. They need a lot in their rotation with Blake Snell. I really don't think they should do opener 4 times a week because I think teams are really aware of that, and it came back to bite the Athletics down the stretch last year because they started doing it, and it happened in the wild card game, and the Yankees exposed them. And I think that they can use some above average or even average arms, like a Lance Lynn would help in their rotation, like somebody like that. Blake Snell's a stud. I would try Tyler Glasnow in the rotation, see if he gets like a fresh start, because he didn't pan out in Pittsburgh. Maybe they trade Glasnow in a possible deal. If the Phillies sign Dallas Keuchel, maybe like a Nick Pivetta becomes available or something like that. So I'm interested to see what Tampa Bay does. Toronto, I think, will be a little bit of a seller. I think Marcus Stroman is a pitcher that could be traded next week. I think that somebody like Justin Smoke could be had. And all Toronto fans are really looking forward to next year is the arrival of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who is an absolute stud. And people are saying that he's going to be baseball's version of LeBron James. We'll see about that. He's been electric down in the minors. He is the best, if not one of the best 3 prospects in baseball right now. And last but not least, the Baltimore Orioles. I think they might eat up some salary a little bit and trade away some salary, like maybe Alex Cobb could be had in a trade, or maybe somebody like Tim Beckham could be had. No way Chris Davis gets moved because his contract is one of the worst 3 in baseball, and I just don't see anybody touching that contract. And they also have a manager to hire. That team's just going to be a complete dumpster fire next year, and I think it's almost a lock that they'd finish last in that division. Oh, and one more free agent reliever I completely forgot about, talking about the Red Sox and the Yankees. Adam Ottavino would be a nice fit on both of those teams, but I'm skeptical because last year was a career year for him, and I get weary of guys having career years and contract years, especially pitchers. Said that about Nathan Eovaldi. I kind of feel like that with Ottavino. Not to say that Ottavino is a bad pitcher, but I just think last year was a career year for him, and I'd rather sign guys like David Robertson, Zach Britton, even Kelvin Herrera. Andrew Miller I'm a little weary of, only because he's been a pitcher in decline over the last year and a half or so. So just started out there. I have high heat on the TV right now, and Chris Russo's interviewing Adam Ottavino. It made me forget about him. So that's another good free agent reliever out there. And in the NL Central, I want to talk about too. We talked about the Cardinals getting Goldschmidt, and what could be next for them? Maybe they're in play for like a Craig Kimbrell or one of those relievers too. And maybe they're a dark horse to get a starting pitcher, even after trading away Luke Weaver. Don't forget about Alex Reyes, who's hurt. And when he's healthy, he's really, really lived up to lofty expectations. People expect him to be an ace in that rotation for years to come with Carlos Martinez. Adam Wainwright's on the downside of his career, but they re-signed him earlier in the offseason. Michael Wacha's somebody that is a bit polarizing because he's shown so much flashes, and then he really would just be like blah for him. And the Chicago Cubs are a team I think is feeling a little bit of pressure right now in the wake of the Cardinals bringing in Paul Goldschmidt. People are saying that they could be in play for Bryce Harper. Everyone says that Harper wants to play with his buddy Chris Bryant. We'll see about that. I do think the Cubs are on the short list of teams that it wouldn't stun me if they signed Bryce Harper. Addison Russell is an interesting topic of conversation. I think a lot of people think that the Cubs should part ways with him, obviously due to his off-field issues, but really he hasn't panned out to the player that the Cubs thought he'd be. He was an overhyped prospect that Oakland traded at the time to get Jeff Samardzija at the deadline a few years back. Oh, and Jason Hamill was in that deal too, and then everyone declared the Cubs winners in that deal and said that Russell is the next big thing. He was going to be special. He has not lived up to hype. Chris Bryant has lived up to hype. Javier Baez is coming off his best season in the big leagues. Addison Russell hasn't even been close to those guys. So I'm interested to see what they do there. I heard a little rumor that Wilson Contreras can be had if the Cubs want to go after JT Realmuto. I just don't see the Cubs doing it. It reminds me of the people saying that the Yankees might flip Gary Sanchez for Realmuto, which that's not happening either. I think Contreras and Sanchez are two of the best 5 catchers in the game, and both really had disappointing years last year. I think both of those catchers rebound, and their ceilings are higher than Realmuto's, and I think Realmuto has hit his ceiling. And then there's that silly rumor about a month ago that the Cubs were exploring the idea of trading Chris Bryant. No way they do that. He's their best player, and I just don't see them doing that, period, end of story. I think the big need for the Cubs is bullpen. They have some guys departing in free agency. Brendan Morrow's coming back off of an injury next year. I'm interested to see if the Cubs go after Andrew Miller or Craig Kimbrell or any of these guys. David Robertson would be a nice fit in Cubby Blue. So it should be interesting to see what they do there. The Milwaukee Brewers obviously made the NLCS a year ago. And they're going to be in play more in the trade rumors than free agents. They're a dark horse for Realmuto because they can use an upgraded catcher. And they also need a pitcher. The Cincinnati Reds are actually thinking big picture a little bit. You hear them link to Dallas Keuchel and all these random free agents, Charlie Morton, and really? But it makes sense because they weren't that bad of a team after they got rid of their manager last year, and they really had guys that had career years such as Scooter Gennett and Raciel Iglesias, and they have some prospects coming up, so maybe they're pushing it a little bit. And then the Pittsburgh Pirates are interesting. They went out and got Chris Archer last trade deadline, and they overpaid, but he really didn't live up to hype in Pittsburgh either. I'm talking about Archer. We'll see what kind of year he has next year. They're probably going to lose Josh Harrison. And they still have a decent collection of players. Like Josh Bell's a nice player. But where's the star on that team? They don't have one. They had a star in Andrew McCutchen, and then they traded him away for not much. Jameson Taillon is an ace. He showed flashes of it last year. I think next year could be the year he puts it all together. So Taillon and Archer would be a nice 1-2 combo. And then they have a lot of guys in the minors that could be stars too, like Mitch Keller. And then that shortstop, Kevin Newman. So the Pirates are another interesting team in that division. We'll talk more baseball tomorrow as I'll do my power rankings prior to the winter meetings. Now let's go to sports. NBA last night. There were some big games. The Warriors defeat the Cavaliers 129-105 in the finals rematch. Golden State improves to 17-9. Cleveland drops to 5-19. Stephen Curry had 42 points, 9 3-pointers, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. Kevin Durant, 25 points, 10 boards, 9 assists. Klay Thompson had 16. Jonas Jerebko off the bench had 11. Quentin Cook off the bench had 10. Meanwhile, Cleveland, Colin Sexton had 21. Rodney Hood had 15. Tristan Thompson had 14 with 19 boards. C.D. Osman had 16. Larry Nance Jr. had 11. Jordan Clarkson had 17 off the bench. The Nuggets defeat the Magic 124-118. Denver is 17-7. Orlando 12-13. Jamal Murray, 31 points and 8 assists. Nikola Jokic had 12 points, 8 boards, 13 assists. Juan Hernan-Gomez had 14. Paul Millsap had 18. Off the bench, Trey Lyles, 12. Mason Plumlee, 11. And Monte Morris, 13. And meanwhile, for Orlando, Nikola Vucevic had 24 with 15 boards. Evan Fournier had 26 with 8 boards. Aaron Gordon, 19.6 boards, 5 assists. Off the bench, Jonathan Isaacs and Mo Bamba each had 11, and Terrence Ross had 17. The Wizards defeat the Hawks 131-117. They avoid the trap. They go to 11-14. Atlanta drops to 5-20. Bradley Beal, 36 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists. John Wall did not play. Otto Porter Jr. had 20 with 11 boards. Thomas Bryant had 16 with 9 boards. Thomas Satoransky had 14 with 7 assists. Marcus Morris off the bench had 12. Markieff Morris. And Kelly Oubre had 19 off the bench. And meanwhile, for Atlanta, John Collins had 26. Kent Bazemore had 22. Trae Young had 14. Dwayne Dedmon had 10. Vince Carter had 13 off the bench. And also off the bench with 11 points, Tyler Dorsey. The Thunder come back and beat the Nets 114-112. Paul George hit the game winner with 3.1 seconds left. OKC improves to 16-7. Brooklyn drops to 8-18. Paul George had 47 points and 15 boards. Russell Westbrook, 21 points, 15 boards, 17 assists. Steven Adams had 15 points and 8 boards. And off the bench, Dennis Schroeder had 12. Meanwhile, for Brooklyn, Allen Crabbe had 22. D'Angelo Russell had 17. Jared Allen had 15. Joe Harris had 19. Damari Carroll had 12. And Spencer Dinwiddie had 17. The Raptors defeat the 76ers 113-102. Toronto NBA best 21-5. Philadelphia 17-9. Kawhi Leonard, 36 points and 9 boards. Serge Ibaka, 18 points and 8 boards. Off the bench, Jonas Valanciunas, 28 points and 8 boards. Meanwhile, for Philadelphia, Joel Embiid only had 10 points and 12 boards with 5 assists, so not a great game for him. J.J. Redick had 25, including 5 3-pointers. Jimmy Butler had 38 points and 10 boards. He kept Philly in that game. The Grizzlies defeat the Clippers 96-86. The Grizzlies improved to 14-9. Clippers dropped to 16-8. Mike Conley, 22 points and 7 boards. Jared Jackson Jr. had 13 and 6 boards, but also fouled out. Jermichael Green had 19 off the bench. Daniel Gallinari had 17. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 12. Bojan Marjanovic had 19 with 8 boards off the bench, and Lou Williams had 12 off the bench. The Bucks defeated the Pistons 115-92. The Bucks are 16-7. Detroit 13-9. Eric Bledsoe had 27 points. Malcolm Brogdon had 14. Tony Snell had 11. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 15 points, 8 boards, 5 assists. Off the bench, Thon Maker and Sterling Brown each had 11. Blake Griffin had 31. Reggie Jackson had 15. Andre Drummond had 10. The Timberwolves defeat the Hornets 121-104. Great win for Minnesota. 13-12 on the year. Charlotte drops to 11-13. Karl Anthony Towns, 35 points and 12 boards. Andrew Wiggins, 26 points, 6 boards and 5 assists, so a nice all-around game for Wiggins. Robert Covington had 17. Taj Gibson had 11. Derrick Rose off the bench had 16. Jeremy Lamb had 18 with 11 boards. Nick Batum had 18 with 7 boards and 8 assists. Kemba Walker only had 15, so not a good game for him. Frank Kaminsky and Miles Bridges each had 10 off the bench. Oh, and Malik Monk also had 10. The Pelicans defeat the Mavericks 132-106. New Orleans is 13-13. Dallas is 12-11. Anthony Davis and Julius Randle each had 27 points. Davis had 9 assists and 4 boards, and Randle had 18 boards. Drew Holiday had 17 with 8 assists. Cheek Diallo had 10 off the bench. Darius Miller had 12 off the bench. Etuan Moore had 17 off the bench. Wesley Matthews had 15. Dorian Finney-Smith had 12. Harrison Barnes had 16. Dwight Powell had 12. Jalen Brunson had 11. J.J. Barea had 14. Those 3 guys obviously off the bench. The Lakers defeat the Spurs 121-113. Entertaining game throughout. LeBron pulled away as the Lakers go to 15-9. San Antonio drops to 11-14. LeBron James, best player on the court, 42 points, including 20 in the fourth quarter alone, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Kyle Kuzma, 22 points, 9 boards, 5 assists. Lonzo Ball, 14 points with 9 assists, including a couple big three-pointers late. Contavious Caldwell-Pope had 12 off the bench. LaMarcus Aldridge had 21. Rudy Gay, 31 with 7 boards. DeMar DeRozan had 32 with 7 boards. Only 3 games tonight. The TNT doubleheader at 8 o'clock. You have the Knicks at the Celtics. This is a revenge spot for the Celtics. Don't forget the Knicks went in there and beat the Celtics the day before Thanksgiving. This is a revenge spot for the Celtics, so I'm going to say they get the win, although I wouldn't rule out the Knicks covering the 13. And at 10:30 on TNT, you have the battle of NBA disappointments between the Rockets and the Jazz. Tough call, but Jesus, this is the hardest call I've made perhaps all season in terms of NBA games. Let's go with the Utah Jazz at home. I think Donovan Mitchell will have a good game. Rudy Gobert will dominate the glass against Clint Capella. I could see the Rockets winning this game. I could see James Harden scoring 50 and Chris Paul having like a 20-point, 15-assist game and leave the Rockets to a win. No outcome in this game would surprise me, whether it's Jazz win close, Rockets win close, Jazz win blowout, or Rockets win blowout. But let's go with the Jazz by 7 points here. The NHL, only a couple games on the slate last night. The Oilers defeated the Blues 3-2 in a shootout. The Oilers go to 14-12-2. St. Louis drops to 9-13-4. The number 1 star of the game with an assist, Connor McDavid. Number 2 star of the game with the goal, Oscar Klefbom. And the number 3 star of the game with 34 saves on 36 shots, Jake Allen. The Ducks defeat the Blackhawks 4-2. The Ducks are playing good hockey. They improve to 15-10-5. Chicago drops to 9-15-5. The number 1 star of the game with the goal, Daniel Sprong. The number 2 star of the game with the goal, Andrej Kos. And the number 3 star of the game with the goal, Eric Gustafsson. The Sharks defeat the Hurricanes 5-1. San Jose improves to 14-10-5. Carolina drops to 12-11-4. Number 1 star of the game with 39 saves on 40 shots, Martin Jones. The number 2 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists, Timo Meier. And the number 3 star of the game with 3 assists, Joe Thornton. Tonight's slate is bigger. At 7 o'clock, you have the Red Wings at the Maple Leafs, so Mike Babcock against his former team. Avalanche Panthers, Blue Jackets Flyers, Islanders Penguins, 7:30 Canadian Senators, Bruins Lightning, 9 o'clock Wild Flames, Capitals Coyotes, 10 o'clock Predators Canucks, Blackhawks Golden Knights, 10:30 Devils Kings. Boy, that was the 2012 Stanley Cup Finals. Those teams have fallen. College basketball. UConn defeats Lafayette 90-63. UConn improves to 7-2. Lafayette drops to 2-6. St. John's defeats Mount St. Mary's 85-71. St. John's 8-0. Mount St. Mary's 0-8. Xavier defeats Ohio 82-61. Xavier 6-3. Ohio 5-3. Number 19, Ohio State defeats Illinois 77-67. Ohio State 8-1. Illinois 2-7. Number 3, Duke defeats Hartford 84-54. Duke 8-1. Hartford 3-7. Number 15, Virginia Tech defeats VMI 89-68. Virginia Tech 7-1. VMI 5-5. North Carolina State defeats Western Carolina 100-67. NC State's 8-1. West Carolina's 2-8. Louisville defeats Central Arkansas 86-41. Louisville 6-2. UCA is 3-5. Butler defeats Brown 70-55. Butler 6-2. Brown 6-4. Hofstra defeats Monmouth 75-73. Hofstra 6-3. Monmouth 0-10. Navy defeats Delaware 80-65. This is what cost me my best bet yesterday, as Navy improves to 3-5. Delaware drops to 7-3. Drexel defeats Loyola Maryland 95-86. Drexel 5-4. Loyola Maryland 3-6. Purdue Fort Wayne defeats Akron 68-65. Purdue Fort Wayne 6-5. Akron 6-3. Duquesne defeats Marshall 93-82. Duquesne improves to 5-2. Marshall drops to 5-3. Richmond defeats Coppin State 82-47. Richmond 4-5. Coppin State 0-10. St. Joe's defeats Princeton 92-82. St. Joe's 5-4. Princeton 4-3. St. Bonaventure defeats Siena 82-40. Bonaventure 4-5. Siena 3-6. Quinnipiac defeats Dartmouth 64-59. Quinnipiac 3-4. Dartmouth 4-5. George Washington defeats Towson 68-64. George Washington 2-7. Towson 2-6. Old Dominion defeats William and Mary 71-53. Old Dominion 6-3. William and Mary 2-7. Canisius defeats Robert Morris 68-62. Canisius 2-6. Robert Morris 4-5. Stony Brook defeats Manhattan 69-62. Stony Brook 8-1. Manhattan 2-6. Morgan State defeats Binghamton 74-68. Morgan State 3-5. Binghamton 3-6. Stetson defeats Western Illinois 68-64. Stetson 2-8. Western Illinois 4-5. FAU defeats Mercer 68-64. FAU 7-2. Mercer 4-5. Toledo defeats Detroit Mercy 101-57. Toledo 8-1. Detroit 3-7. Colgate defeats Columbia 64-62. Colgate 7-3. Columbia 1-6. Yale defeats Lehigh 97-87. Yale 4-2. Lehigh 5-3. The Citadel defeats Johnson and Wales, North Carolina 127-93. Citadel is now 7-2. North Texas defeats Indiana State 80-69. North Texas 9-1. Indiana State 5-2. UIC defeats Illinois State 94-75. UIC 4-5. Illinois State 6-4. Miami defeats Wright State 65-62 on a buzzer beater by Isaiah Coleman Land. Miami of Ohio 5-4. Wright State 4-5. Number 17, Buffalo defeats Lemoyne 89-55. Buffalo's now 8-0. Vanderbilt defeats Middle Tennessee 79-51. Vanderbilt 6-2. Middle Tennessee 3-6. Number 13, Texas Tech defeats Arkansas Pine Bluff 65-47. Texas Tech 8-0. Pine Bluff 2-6. Coastal Carolina defeats Hampton 75-66. Coastal Carolina 5-4. Hampton 3-6. Eastern Kentucky defeats South Carolina Upstate 79-77. Eastern Kentucky 5-4. Upstate 2-7. Cleveland State defeats Bowling Green 82-64. Cleveland State 3-7. Bowling Green 4-5. VCU defeats Texas 54-53. VCU 7-2. Texas 5-3. Tulsa defeats Oklahoma State 74-71. Tulsa 6-3. Oklahoma State 4-4. Tulane defeats Tennessee Martin 87-74. Tulane 3-5. UT Martin 3-3. Southern Illinois defeats St. Louis 61-56. Southern Illinois 6-3. St. Louis 6-2. Rio Grande Valley defeats North Dakota 70-56. Rio Grande 7-4. North Dakota 4-5. Florida Gulf Coast defeats Oral Roberts 96-76. Florida Gulf Coast 3-8. Oral Roberts 3-8. Northern Illinois defeats UC Davis 71-62. Northern Illinois 5-3. Davis 2-7. Texas State defeats A&M Corpus Christi 61-55. Texas State 8-1. A&M Corpus Christi 4-5. New Orleans defeats South Alabama 71-60. New Orleans 4-3. Alabama 4-5. I should say South Alabama. Louisiana defeats Loyola, Louisiana, 91-84 as Louisiana improves to 6-3. Missouri State defeats Western Kentucky, 84-78. Missouri State 4-5. Western Kentucky 4-4. Number 21 Villanova defeats Temple, 69-59. Villanova 7-2. Temple drops to 7-2. Minnesota upsets number 24 Nebraska, 85-78. I called this on the podcast yesterday. Minnesota improves to 7-2. Nebraska drops to 7-2. Number 14 North Carolina defeats UNC Wilmington, 97-69. UNC 7-2. Wilmington 4-6. Wyoming defeats South Carolina, 73-64. Wyoming 3-6. South Carolina 4-4. BYU defeats Utah State, 95-80. BYU 6-4. Utah State 7-2. Ball State defeats Loyola Chicago, 75-69. Ball State 6-3. Loyola Chicago 5-4. Washington State defeats Idaho 90-70. Washington State 5-2. Idaho 3-5. Air Force defeats Denver 73-65. Air Force 4-5. Denver 2-7. Arkansas defeats Colorado State 98-74. Arkansas 6-1. Colorado State 4-5. TCU defeats SMU 67-59. TCU 6-1. SMU 6-4. Pacific defeats Texas Permian Basin 74-69 as Pacific goes to 7-4. UC Irvine defeats Cal Baptist 69-66. Irvine 8-2, and Baptist 4-5. Fresno State defeats Weber State 71-52. Fresno 6-2. Weber 5-3. Long Beach State defeats Southern Utah 82-71. Long Beach State 3-7. Southern Utah 4-2. Loyola Marymount defeats Cal State Fullerton 59-49. Marymount 9-1. Fullerton 3-6. San Diego upsets San Diego State 73-61. San Diego 7-2. South Dakota State 5-3. San Diego State. Cal State Northridge defeats Cal State San Marcos 76-72 as Northridge improves to 3-5. Portland State defeats Portland 87-78. Portland State 5-3 and Portland's 5-5. Number 1 Gonzaga defeats Washington 81-79 on a game-winning shot by Rui Hachimura with a half second left as Gonzaga is still unbeaten at 9-0. Washington drops to 6-3. San Francisco defeats California 79-60. San Francisco 8-1 and Cal is 2-5. Tonight's slate is a little smaller per se. We already had one go final, and that was Gardner-Webb defeating Bob Jones 105-37. Rest of the slate, you have number 23 Maryland at Purdue. Purdue's actually favored, so it's not an upset if Maryland loses. Charlotte, Wake Forest, Oakland, Fairfield, Kentucky, Christian, Wofford, Indiana, Kokomo against Indiana, Purdue. Warren Wilson, Texas Tech, Fort Valley State, Florida A&M, 7:30 Voorhees at SC State. 8 o'clock Fox Sports 1, you have the Cyhawk, Iowa State at number 18, Iowa. Iowa State favored on the road. That's a little weird. So if a ranked team wins, this is the rare scenario where the ranked team pulls off an upset, and I think that's the case here. As I think Iowa should be the favorite in the game, not Iowa State. Drake at Milwaukee, Trinity, Illinois at Chicago State, 9 o'clock Utah Valley, Arizona, 10 o'clock Pepperdine, UC, Riverside, Omaha, Seattle, and Bethune-Cookman, San Jose State. Before I move on, a little bit of baseball news. Carlos Carrasco has signed a contract extension through 2022. So, interesting extension there. So, the most likely to be traded is either Kluber or Bauer now. That's what that means. So, he's extended through 2022 with the vesting option for 2023. So, that's some big baseball news right now. And like I said, now this tells me that they're either going to move Trevor Bauer or Corey Kluber. And after missing out on Patrick Corbin, I really think that the Yankees should be looking at these guys if they opt not to re-sign J. Happ. And Houston's another team that's looking for starting pitching. They might lose both Dallas Keuchel and Charlie Morton, and Lance McCullers Jr. is having Tommy John surgery. So that's another team that I think could potentially trade for one of those Indian starters. Now I'm going to do power rankings for the NBA and NHL respectively. I'm going to start with the NBA. I'm going to go from 30 to 1 as I do each time I do this. Haven't done NBA power rankings in a while, just a busy past few weeks. Same can be said about NHL too. I'm going to do one thought on every team. Number 30 is the Phoenix Suns. I think this is the worst team in the league. Number 29 is the Atlanta Hawks. John Collins has played well since coming back from his injury. 28 is the Chicago Bulls. Fred Hoiberg gone, Jim Boylan in. I don't think Jim Boylan's the answer long term. 27 is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They really are a dumpster fire, although Colin Sexton continues to show promise. 26 is the Brooklyn Nets. They have been brutal. I believe 8 losses in a row now. Blew the big lead at home to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Number 25 is the New York Knicks. They have shown some promise. Kevin Knox has shown a little bit more promise of late. So they have the nice rookie class with Knox and Mitchell Robinson and Alonzo Trier. They have an interesting one tonight at Boston. They're a team that probably should tank, but I think that they want to entice Kevin Durant to come play in New York, so that's probably why they're trying a little more than the other tanking teams. And they also have a good coach in David Fizdale, who's really gotten a lot out of guys like Emmanuel Mudiay and Noah Vonleh, who were perceived as busts coming out, or when they first came out of the draft, and they've really have had career years so far. 24 is the Miami Heat. They've lost some brutal games this year. Number 23 is the San Antonio Spurs. This isn't the Spurs of old, and I said that all year. 22 is the Houston Rockets. They have been very Jekyll and Hyde all year. They had that bad loss to Minnesota. I'm fascinated to see how they play tonight. 21 is the Utah Jazz. They're the other most disappointing team in the NBA. Like I said, tonight's the battle of disappointments, and the loser of this game will come out as the biggest disappointment in the NBA. Number 20 is the New Orleans Pelicans. A little bit of a drop-off after a hot start. Number 19 is the Washington Wizards. It's the opposite for them. They've played a lot better after a slow start. Number 18 is the Charlotte Hornets. Bad loss last night to the Timberwolves. Number 17 is the Sacramento Kings. They've been a bit of a surprise so far. Number 16 is the Minnesota Timberwolves. They've been playing better after the Jimmy Butler trade. Is that Ewing theory? I need to see more. Get back to me on Christmas to see where the Timberwolves are. Number 15 is the Orlando Magic. I think have been the biggest surprise in the Eastern Conference. They're currently in the top 8 right now. They're upsetting teams left and right. Number 14 is the Dallas Mavericks, who have been another big surprise this year, courtesy of Luka Doncic. Number 13 is the Portland Trailblazers. They've fallen off after a hot start. Number 12 is the Detroit Pistons. They have not played well of late either. Number 11 is the Memphis Grizzlies. This, to me, has been one of the biggest 2 surprises in the NBA. Number 10 is the Boston Celtics. They've been playing a little bit better lately. They have to win tonight against the Knicks, in my opinion. 9 is the Indiana Pacers. Victor Oladipo's out, and they're still playing pretty well. Number 8 is the Los Angeles Clippers, who had the best record in the West a couple days ago, and then they lost to Memphis last night, but this is still a good team. 7 is the Los Angeles Lakers, who have been playing a lot better since their slow start. LeBron James is certainly one of the favorites for MVP with a big performance last night on national television. Number 6 is the Philadelphia 76ers. They've been very good since acquiring Jimmy Butler. I believe they are now 8-3 since the trade, or 10-3, something like that. But they really have a chance to do big things in the spring this year with the addition of Butler. Number 5 is the Denver Nuggets. They've been hot and cold. They got the big win in Toronto, and they've done some other big things as well. Number 4 is the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo is obviously a top 5 MVP candidate, and Mike Budenholzer has made a great impact on this team. That was not a good loss to the Knicks over the weekend, but they're going to rebound from that, and it seems like they have already. Number 3 is the Golden State Warriors. Yes, the Warriors are at 3. They've been playing well since the return of Stephen Curry. I think a big test next Wednesday looms for them as the Raptors come to town. Their schedules get a little harder. They're playing the Cream Puffs of the East, so I don't want to go gaga over the Warriors being back unless they beat a good team. I just wish that they would have had Curry back for that Raptors game. Maybe they win that Raptors game with Curry if he's there, because that was a close game and Durant single-handedly brought them back. Number 2 is the Oklahoma City Thunder. They've been playing great basketball of late. They really have emerged as a contender in the West. I think they have a trade to make potentially to improve themselves so they can have a great crunch time 5 with the 2 guards, George, Adams, one more wing combo forward type of guy, and I think they're set. And last but not least, number 1 is the Toronto Raptors. This is right now the best team in the NBA. They had a bit of a hiccup Monday against the Nuggets, but I think they, like I said on my podcast yesterday, we're looking ahead to this game, and then they go out and win by double digits. The Raptors are great. I talked about it yesterday. Kawhi Leonard, MVP candidate. Kyle Lowry rejuvenated. Serge Ibaka rejuvenated. Pascal Siakam made the leap like people thought he would. And you also have your bench like Fred VanVleet and CJ Miles and guys like that stepping up too. Jonas Valanciunas coming off the bench as well. Greg Monroe even had an impact yesterday. So this team is loaded. And I can't wait to see them play Golden State next week. Hockey power rankings. Going to go from 31 to 1. Number 31 is the Los Angeles Kings. This team, I'd feel so bad. They won the Cup twice this decade, and they've fallen off since then, and Darryl Sutter's long gone, and they're facing a big rebuild ahead. 30 is the St. Louis Blues. They've been such a big disappointment this year. They fired Mike Yeo. Interested to see what this team does at the trade deadline. Number 29 is the Chicago Blackhawks. Talk about downfalls. They're in that Kings category of they're facing a long rebuild ahead, and that's what happens sometimes when you win multiple championships and you just buy in and keep your heroes. And a lot of sports teams are going through this right now. The New York Football Giants, the San Francisco Giants, and obviously the Blackhawks and the Kings are the 4 teams that stand out to me. Multiple championships within a decade and then facing reality of a possible long rebuild. So that's what the Blackhawks are facing ahead of them. I really don't think the new intern coach has done a good job at all. 28 is the New Jersey Devils. This could be another dark horse hot seat coach, John Hines. I think that he's done a nice job with the Devils, but his team really is underachieved. I think the goaltending's been a big issue, and Taylor Hall just isn't having the year that he had last year. 27 is the Philadelphia Flyers. Another big disappointment, probably the biggest disappointment in the Eastern Conference to this date. I really thought that they were going to make a big jump and make a trade for a goalie and make a run at it, but they've been just bad. And they fired their GM, which I thought was a bad move. Number 26 is the Vancouver Canucks. They've fallen back to reality. They have some young guys, Bo Horvat, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Boeser to build around. So that's what they have going for them. 25 is the Detroit Red Wings. They've been, in my opinion, a surprise. I thought they were going to be one of the doormats of the NHL this year. Maybe they revert to that eventually, but they've been playing decent hockey, as well as number 24, the Ottawa Senators. If I'm the Senators, I trade Matt Duchene at the deadline and tank, because this team is just not good. But credit to Guy Boucher. He, I think, has done a fantastic job with this team. 23 is the Arizona Coyotes. They've been Jekyll and Hyde over the last couple weeks, beating some good teams, losing to some bad teams. 22 is the Florida Panthers. They're starting to show a little bit what they're capable of doing. 21 is the Carolina Hurricanes. That was a bad loss last night to the Sharks. Number 20 is the New York Rangers. I had them pretty high the last time I did these power rankings, but they've fallen back and reverted to what people thought they were, which is a bad team that's rebuilding. Number 19 is the New York Islanders. Same thing with the Rangers. They've reverted back to that bad team that's rebuilding as well. Number 18 is the Montreal Canadiens. That's the team that's really sustained its surprising success so far. That's credit to Claude Julien. Carey Price has played well for the most part. And then guys that I thought were busts have really found homes in Montreal, like Jonathan Drouin and Max Domi. So that's been a big help for them. 17th, the Pittsburgh Penguins. This team is starting to come along very well. I expect them to put up a big performance against the Islanders tonight. Sidney Crosby's back. 16th, the Edmonton Oilers. They're playing a little bit better under Keith Hitchcock. They got the win last night in St. Louis. Number 15 is the Boston Bruins, who have fallen back a little bit, but I expect them to get right a little bit. 14th is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They were in first place in the division, and they've been leapfrogged. Number 13 is the Minnesota Wild. They've been playing good hockey this year. I'm interested to see what kind of moves they make at the deadline. Number 12 is the San Jose Sharks. They're a solid team in the West. That was a big win last night that they had. Number 11 is the Washington Capitals. They've fallen off a little bit after that little good run that they've had against their division teams after losing at home to the Ducks, and then they lost to the Golden Knights. Number 10 is the Calgary Flames. They've been playing some solid hockey lately. Number 9 is the Vegas Golden Knights. What a turnaround they've had. I think they put themselves in a great position to stay in that playoff hunt after a slow start. They were the most disappointing team in the NHL, but they've turned it around and shedded that label quick. And that's credit to Gerard Gallant and that staff. And a lot of their guys are starting to return from injuries and get back to form. They got Nate Schmidt back from the suspension too. 8 is the Dallas Stars. I think Jim Montgomery's done a nice job so far this year. 7th, the Anaheim Ducks. They've been playing great hockey of late. Got the win against the Blackhawks last night. 6 is the Winnipeg Jets. They're a very good team. They had that nice come-from-behind win against the Rangers. They beat the Islanders too. Number 5 is the Colorado Avalanche. They're a very good hockey team out west too, with a lot of studs. 4th, the Buffalo Sabres. Their big win streak came to an end against the Tampa Bay Lightning last week. But this is still a good team in the East, and I think they're going to hang around. And I think that they have one more trade in them to make themselves a big push for the playoffs. And number 3 is the Nashville Predators. They've fallen off a little bit, but they're still one of the better teams in the West. Number 2 is the Toronto Maple Leafs. That was a good win the other night in Buffalo when Austin Matthews scored the game winner. And William Nylander's back, and I think this team is ready to roll. And number 1 is the Tampa Bay Lightning. This is easily the best team in the league right now. They've just been beating everybody left and right, no matter who's in net. And once they get Vasilevsky back, I think this team is absolutely poised to make a run at the President's Trophy. Tonight we have a big Thursday night game between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. The Jaguars are a team that's kind of out of it. They benched Blake Bortles for Cody Kessler. Tennessee needs this game in the worst way. So give me the Tennessee Titans to win. I'm going to say they win the game 26-13. So, lay the 5. That's my play. I just don't see Jacksonville hanging around for a whole game. Maybe for 3 quarters. But Tennessee, I could see winning by double digits. And last but not least, my best bet of the day. This is sponsored by DraftKings. You think I have the Boston Celtics in there? No, I don't. They hurt my feelings a couple times for me putting them in the parlays. One of them being against the Knicks the last time the Knicks went to Boston on Thanksgiving Eve. That came back and hurt me a little bit. And I had them against Orlando in a big moneyline parlay. That came back to bite me, so I'm giving them a 1-day suspension. Well, I did suspend them when they hosted the Cavaliers a few weeks ago, too. So I avoided them there, too. But I'm going to avoid them again. Because I think that the Knicks could, in theory, steal the game. I'm not saying that the Knicks have no chance, but... So, just going to suspend the Celtics from this for another day. The Portland Trail Blazers are the only NBA team in this tonight. They're playing the Suns at home, and the Suns are the worst team in the league. I'm taking the Titans. I just don't see them dropping to the Jaguars. And in college basketball, Wake Forest, Arizona, and Seattle. 2 hockey teams. I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs over the Red Wings. I just don't see Mike Babcock losing to his former team. And the Vegas Golden Knights, who have been playing great hockey, especially in their home building. And Chicago's been a mess. So that adds up to plus 317 to win $3.17 with a payout of $4.17. And that's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping Thursday Night Football, NBA, NHL, college basketball. I'll do the baseball power rankings prior to the winter meetings. I'll do the rest of Week 14 picks. And I'll make gambling plays on those Week 14 picks as well. I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.